Big news yesterday was James Hird could be making a remarkable return to coaching at his old club, at your old club, the Bombers. He's officially put his hand up for the position, made vacant, of course, after the Bombers sacked Ben Rutten after their final round loss to Richmond. Hird, he last coached the Bombers in 2015. He was initially appointed in 2010 and then, of course, stood down by the AFL for the 2014 season after the supplement scandal. And now he's on the shortlist, and yesterday he was interviewed. And it's a pretty big development. And it's is it fair to say Essendon people are completely divided when it comes to James Hird? It's hard to get a read on where the consensus might sit.
When you say divided, whether or not they are divided on whether they want him to be the coach, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'd have to throw it out there. Throw it out there and find out whether or not people that necessarily support Essendon, well, maybe just the Essendon fans, you can throw it out there too, whether or not they would like to see James.
You weren't surprised though, were you?
Oh, no, because we had I wasn't surprised because Mitch Cleary had a story the night before saying that he was on a list of coaches that was going to be interviewed.
Yeah, his name hadn't gone away.
No, it hadn't gone away. And I'm not surprised at all that they would interview him if he had put his hand up and said, yes, I do want to be interviewed. I do want to go through the process. That didn't surprise me at all.
Is there too much baggage, I suppose, is the question for someone like him? Is there just too much to carry back into the club?
Well, there is that, but I think this process is, if it's set up correctly, and there's no reason to believe that it's not set up correctly, then they're always going to, if he put his hand up and said that he wanted to be interviewed and wanted to be part of the process, then given his unique connection to the Essendon Football Club, I would have thought they were always going to interview him.
Mm.
That doesn't mean to say he's going to get the job. He's got to go through the process like everybody else. But just thinking, like, he hasn't coached since 2015. He wasn't a successful coach back then when he did coach, although there were these unusual circumstances around all that. But maybe, the sum of his experiences that he's had away from the game since then and what he's been doing has allowed him, I don't know, maybe to develop a unique set of man management skills. And he's super intelligent bloke. And all that would be unveiled through the interviewing process. So it gives that group somebody else to interview, but also somebody else to measure the other candidates against. We know that he hasn't coached since 2015. It's a long time to be out of the game, but then he got back at GWS and put his feet under the desk a little bit on a part-time basis, so he probably has picked up on the mechanic. Like, he's a super intelligent bloke.
That's the other side of it. Is he the one, after all his life experiences now, to come back as that man manager, the one, he might be the one to unite a broken club? I mean, if we're going to take a glass half empty look, that's the glass half full look. Yeah,
I don't see, I think what will unite a club, and if you say, let's say Essendon is broken, what will unite a club will be success. Now, it doesn't have to come from James Hird being the coach of the Essendon Football Club to unite Essendon.
But it has to
start
be
successful.
The club would have been
but the club would have been united under Ben Rutten had they been more successful. The club would have been united under John Worsfold had they been more successful. So we don't need a saviour to come back to the Essendon Football Club and unite the Essendon Football Club. We need somebody who's able to put a plan of action in place that is able to deliver success and to start to build a successful team again. That's what we need.
Can he be looked at as objectively as the others, though? That's the other thing. So I know they've got the subcommittee in. So it's curiously at arm's length from the club in a way, like David Barham and the board that's taken over. They've delegated the responsibility. I mean, Hird's fate will be sealed by people who have, well, there is a director on there, Dorothy Isgrove, but otherwise at arm's length from the club. So can he be looked at as objectively as the other ones?
Well, I'll throw it back to you. Can Wolsey look at things objectively, do you think?
Well, you'd like to think in that environment, absolutely he could.
That's right, and that's exactly what they've got there.
1300 736 736. Love to hear from you on this particular topic. Put everything aside, this is off the 40 Wins temper text, that Hirdy was involved in. Can the guy actually coach is what some supporters wonder as well, and the time spent out of the game, and very hard to judge sitting here. Why are people surprised that Hirdy's going for the Essendon job? We've known since day one. That's from Millsy. And this one, Travis in Brisbane, I'm out if James gets the Bombers job. I've been a supporter for 40 years. This will be too much. I love James, but this is a complete circus, Travis in Brisbane.
And I think for a lot of people, it would drag back all those things that happened and occurred, like during that period of time that he was there as coach too. So, and like it will be part. I would have to say I'd be more than surprised if he ended up being the coach of the Essendon Football Club. But I'm happy for him to be part of the process and for him to have the courage to put his hand up and even go through, because he would have known what this would have attracted. Once it became public knowledge, he would have known that it puts him right out there in the middle of a conversation again.
That's brave.
Which he has wanted to shy away from and avoid for a long time.
And they reached out to him too. It wasn't like he approached the club. So they've seen fit to involve him in the process, Essendon.
Is that right?
Yes.
I don't know that to be true or not, but if you're telling me that.
That is what was reported by Mark Robinson last night on AFL 360, that it wasn't James that approached Essendon, it was the Essendon subcommittee that approached James and asked him to apply. He took up that
Maybe
offer.
he was asked to, maybe they were asked to do that though. I don't know. I don't know that to be true or false, but I would think that that's probably how it played out.
Matty's in Caulfield. Morning, Matty.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good.
So just on the whole Herd thing, as an Essendon supporter who lived and breathed it over the last 10 years, just a question on the process. So let's say Herd is the best candidate and hopefully they have an objective point of view here. Do they present it to the club and the club will then decide whether they want to go with that direction? Even though, let's say, Uze might be the second best option according to the subcommittee, but will it be up to the subcommittee or the board who decides whether they actually want Herd back after everything that's happened?
Matty, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think that what will happen is that they'll make a recommendation. They'll say this is the shortlist, and then it would go before the board for a final decision. They will make a recommendation who they believe is the best candidate, and then it would still have to get the board's tick of approval. There are a couple of people on the board, well, one or two board members that are currently on the selection panel.
So it's chaired by Josh Marnie.
Yeah.
You got the former NAB CEO, Andrew Thorburn. You got the club director, Dorothy Hillsgrove. You got Wolsey. You got Jordan Lewis. And then the netball coach, Simone McKinnon.
Okay, so there's only one current member of the Essendon board
Correct.
on the selection committee.
Correct. And just speaking of Jordan Lewis, he was on AFL 360, mentioned earlier, as part of his obligations. And, of course, he was asked about James Herd.
Do you feel like you can come at the James Herd case completely impartially without the residue of the past?
I think you have to with every candidate. There were candidates today that I've had personal relationships with, been involved with at certain clubs. So there is certain elements of, whether it be emotional, interactive, whatever it might be, you have to come with it from that lens. Yeah, I think all the panel members today were really impressed by presentations.
Brent in Langwarrin, I'd love James to coach Essendon again. He'll be better off second time around and will galvanise the club, exactly what we need at our broken club. Brett's in Mentone, Wisp. Let's hear from him. G'day, Brett.
G'day, how you going?
Yeah, we're good.
That's all right. I'm not an Essendon supporter. I barrack for Collingwood, but I cannot see any reason why he shouldn't be allowed back to coach Essendon if he's suitable. I mean, what other than the obvious of letting what happened happen, what has he been found guilty of? Same with Tim's son. What were they found guilty of?
No, that's a good question. That is a very good question, Brett. We'll just leave that hanging, unless you want to answer that, Sam.
I'll leave that one. Listen to Herd on the Howie games. Did you listen to that?
No, I haven't. I've only read excerpts from that and
good.
a transcript, and apparently it was very good. Good morning, boys. Being an Essendon fan for nearly 50 years, it's been a painful last 10 years. I think our club needs stability and success. I believe Herb will bring stability, but not sure the success will be there. Bombers should make sure there's a senior assistant alongside him. That's John. This is just an interview. Like this isn't that he's going to be appointed the coach. I think a lot of people.
But it's not a big list. There might only be half.
Well, you don't know. You don't know how big the list is. Like if we find out.
Well, we do because Ross Lyon told us there was only going to be 6.
Well, you don't know that. You don't know that on that list is not Brad Scott. You don't know whether on that list is Dom Pike.
Ken Hinkley.
You don't know whether you keep saying that they'll go to Ken Hinkley.
So what
as
happens
well.
to the
They've
process?
got Adam Uze, James Herd. I believe Dean Solomon
Brendan
was on
Lade.
that list. Brendan Lade. So there's already 7 names that were thrown up.
So Jordan Lewis went on to say on AFL 360 last night they did 4 interviews yesterday. They went from the start of the day all the way through to the end. Big day of presentations. Uze was there. Brendan Lade was there. We know James Herd was there. Don't know who the 4th person was.
Well, it may have been Dean Solomon. I believe that he was going to be interviewed as well. So it may have been Solly. But I spoke to somebody who had dealt with Herdy on a football level, and they thought this is somebody outside Essendon. They thought that he had a unique perspective on life because we are all the sum of our experiences. Now, the experiences that he has had are unique to anybody where he's been. And most of us now know where he's been over the last period of time and what he's had to go through. Apart from that, he's been involved in business, he's travelled, he's done overseas things. So he brings probably a unique perspective to the management side of a football team that
100%.
no other candidate that will be interviewed will have. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's enough for you to be the best candidate to coach, though, either.
But he's been to the bottom of the barrel, hasn't he? His life experiences are so significant. So
yeah, but what percentage do you put on that as being the important part of being a coach, though, either?
Exactly. Yeah, but if you surround yourself, we've seen before, maybe you don't have to be the sharpest tactical mind because you surround yourself with others that are, and you can be the man manager that galvanises and unites a club from a harmonious perspective and a mental and emotional perspective. So we've seen that before. Stefan's in Glenburn. He wants to have his say. How are you, Steph?
Good morning, fellas. I'm good. I hope you guys are good as well. I'm calling in I'm all for James Hird, and I'm also all for Joe Watson to get his Brownlow back. I just wanted to say that I'm really disappointed in everyone on social media for really digging their claws in and continuing with the disappointing bullying of them, of Hird and Watson in regards to the drugs and stuff like that. I feel like as a culture and as a society, we need to show a little bit more empathy and a little bit more forgiveness, and not be so like just harsh. These are people's lives. They have families. And I really just feel like Hird could galvanise and bring the club back together. He's a good man. We all know what happened with Bomber Thompson in recent years with going to jail, Stephen Dank and the weapon. So I really feel sorry for Hird, and I hope that everyone can move on. The past is the past. And that's all I want to say.
I'm not sure the Bomber went to jail, did he?
No.
I'm pretty sure they didn't go to jail.
No.
Dave's in Mortlake. Good morning, Dave.
Hey, guys, how you going?
Good, Dave.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm a passionate Essendon member. And just back onto the James thing, obviously you just said that you haven't really listened to the Howie game before, but I think it shows great characters of James that, after everything that happened back from 2012 to now, that he's able to get through it and obviously through with his family to then even still have the love and the passion for the Dons. So, I mean, I'm all for it coming back in, and after listening to the Howie games, I thought that was really good insight, and you can tell just by how he speaks that he's still really in love and passionate about coaching and Essendon. So I think that's a great opportunity for us. I'd also be happy with either Don Pike or Adam Uze. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, my thought on all this is that you go through a process. If it's set up correctly, they ask the right questions, then you end up with the best candidate. And we've seen that in more recent times. Like Craig McRae got spat out of the Collingwood process. So it works if you get it right and you bring in all those potential coaches, and ultimately you should end up with the best candidate. And it may, out of all this, it may end up being James Hird. Who knows?